development trends and biomethane markets in Italy. Three different outlooks on the current scenario. So good morning to all of you. Marco Pezzaglia. Into the market, the this type of energy is not unpredictable, it's not affected by rapid variation issues, and it's a production that is quite stable. So this is the first aspect as well as a feature. Then let us look at the market. So we've got 1,400 plants. Oh no, sorry, the speaker apologizes. 1,400 is megawatts, and there are thousands of plants. And then investments amount to some 4.5 billion euros, which is an investment that is part of the operations of firms. So these investments are not something that it's not just lost this type of investment. This is a type of investment that has changed the way in which farms and firms process materials and products. So it's an investment that's going to stay. Evolutions. So starting from these figures, we can illustrate the fact that it's been some 10 years since we have been trying to do something more. Since 2013, there has been a decree for biomethane. We are in 2021, almost 2022. To have a decree in 2013, we started a long time before. But basically, we have been talking about this topic for some 10 years now. So what happened? First of all, we did not have the reconversion of the current fleet, which was one of the steps that the first decree hoped for. So that did not happen. And if you look at reality, even though there are incentives that would promote new plants, they were not established as much as we hoped for. So what has happened? What did not work? Or that could have worked better, and that over time somehow changed? First of all, problems in terms of connecting to the grid at first, yes, but over time this problem was solved because grid managers have solved problems. So many problems were solved over time. And these type of problems will be solved over time. The problem of biomass, well, this is essential in the farming sector, and you spoke about that yesterday in greater depth. So knowing what you can use to have access to incentives is essential for biomass. If we say, oh, well, it's Europe that doesn't allow us to do that, well, that's not the case. The EU is an important actor, but when we speak about biomass in agriculture, Europe is not the same everywhere. So Italy has a set of special features that have to be considered within this scenario. An excessively conservative approach by producers, well, this is an accusation that has been made because some entrepreneurs in the agricultural sector, if they are confident or well with what they have, they will not introduce changes. But then I will change if I have the perception that by changing I can have something more or I can have some certainty for what I do. So these 10 years give us an indication in terms of policies. When you come from a mechanism that is good, convenient, and that has led to interesting and sizable changes in the Italian economic sector, and you want to go towards something that is more virtuous, even though this is more virtuous and you want to set the stage for this change, doesn't mean that you're going to be able to do it. So what has been prevailing is the perception of this uncertainty in going towards a new mechanism compared with what we had before, because despite the intention to do things, there were also some aspects that were not covered, and this acted as a discouraging element. But there are great potentials for biomethane and biogas. At the European level, in Italy, biogas and biomethane can have a very important impact in decarbonization. And electric biogas is another variable in the field of security, which is very important for our system. We don't want to speak about planning. We are speaking about rotating inertia. If I go on a bicycle and there's wind, it's going to push me and keep me balanced. This is more or less the analogy. This is a gyroscopic effect that this is how it's called technically, but it's called inertia in the electrical sector. This is very important, and the system is looking for this more and more. And also, then agricultural biogas is very important as a driver for the development of local chains. So this is the type of development we can expect. We're speaking about 8 billion, yes, well, maybe something less if we want to be realistic, but that little bit less is still a lot more than we have now. So it means to double what we have now. So we are at 2.5 now. We could get to 6, 7. This is what we can expect. If we want to speak about trajectories and scenarios, I'm not the best person, but today we are lucky enough to have here with us Professor Delfanti, who is the CEO of a company that institutional that cooperates with institutions in defining scenarios. So he is the CEO of RSE, and I would like to give the floor to Professor Delfanti, who is the best place to give us an overview on these topics. Good morning, Professor Delfanti, and thank you for being here. I will also show you a PowerPoint presentation. Thank you for inviting me and for organizing this event in person. It's a way to restart again and start meeting again, and it's an effective manner to talk about these topics. RSE is at the service of the national energy system. Particularly, we are a part of the GSE group. We are the research branch of the GSE, the energy service managers, and we try to outline scenarios for the ministry that are going to lead us to 2030. And in my presentation, in the last two slides, I would like to look at what may happen beyond 2030. As Mr. Pezzaglia was saying, there are some new things compared to the PNIEC. So we can look at the new energy scenarios before 2030.
Prova, 1, 2, 3,
Some
prova, 1, 2, 3, prova.
further figures, and
Prova, 1,
we
2,
will go take a look at what happens around
3, prova, 1,
2050.
2, 3, prova. Pulito?
Okay, these are just draft slides. These are initial forecasts, because the scenario is what you see here. So we start from this PNIEC, which is PNIEC, a final text published on the energy and climate plan. Then there is the New Deal that has raised our expectations. Economic drivers and social drivers have changed also because of COVID. A European guideline was published on hydrogen, and Italy has adapted and has transposed these guidelines. And more recent, the NRPP has placed before us some new opportunities in the shorter term. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we expect some accelerations to take place. So the result of all these factors is what has led us to the new scenario that I would like to share with you today. Also to discuss its prospects by looking at some data. So our first observation is that the Green Deal objectives are even more challenging than those that European Commission had set out in the previous scenario. And when you look at what it means for Italy, it means that while in the PNIEC we had a reduction by 37%, with the new scenario, in tons of in CO2 tons, is 51% tons of emitted CO2. So to move from 2020 to where we need to go, 2050, and in that case, carbon intensity is 0, so it's easy to remember. So to get there, the trajectory that the Green Deal has set out is the lowest, the green one. We are required to make an effort before 2030 that is even higher than what is going to lead us to 2050. So this is a continental scenario, which we are about to embark on. And use this expression because, as you know, that the package Fit for 55 is still being negotiated, negotiations between the individual states and the European Commission. So this is another reason why I invite you to look at these slides as drafts, because not even the emission accounting rules have been formalized. So we are still in a scenario that is very uncertain. So among the drivers that have led us to changing the scenarios, there is also hydrogen. The fact that in the energy forecasts for 2030 and 50, we should also consider this new opportunity, this new energy resource. And in addition, the NRPP gives us some essential inputs. My vision, also because I cooperate often with ministry, is that if the NRPP represented a further acceleration in connection with the trajectories for 2030 for the next 2 to 3 years, but it is made up of decisions that have already been made, so allocations that have already been decided, and which are going to be implemented shortly. As far as methane is concerned, we are 2.3 billion of cubic meters by 2026. So it's an intermediate step before 2030. Some results, and I will go very quickly because some things are not really related to today's topic. A first objective that was made more challenging, if you look to the left, is that of energy efficiency, reducing gross income consumption that has to go to 132 megaTERP. We were at 132 according to the PNIEC. So the reduction in primary energy consumption is sizable. There should be renewable growth, which is just as strong, and also a share of some 5-6 of megaTERP of biomethane for primary consumption. We're speaking about primary energy here. This is the first important figure. So imagine this is still draft. As far as energy efficiency goals, as far as they are concerned, these are the way in which they are broken down according to the various sectors. A large part is related to residential, tertiary, industry. We think about it a bit less for historical reasons because our industries are more energetically efficient than in other countries in Europe because of energy costs, and we are going to adopt other measures for industry. As far as transportation is concerned, well, they were very much focused. A reduction of saving in the PNIEC world was 2.6, and we have moved to 3.1. So a focus on electrical power generation. There is an increase. This is a key for decarbonization is electrification of consumption. So total generation of power that we are imagining for 2030, it's around 320 terawatt per hour, with some significant phenomena. 224 terawatt hour by 2030, some 12 are produced from biogas or biomethane. This is important for our debate. More in detail, as far as final energy consumptions are concerned, here we are looking at a broader scenario, not just the electrical system part, but the overall global final consumption level. In this case, there is a compression, which is parallel to the compression of the gross inland consumption. And we're speaking about 96 megatep before 2030. The code of the colors is quite evident. The share of electric power is even increased. We move from 26 to 27, and there are important steps also among the other components. Because you see a new energy resource, hydrogen, which by 2030 is still associated to limited amounts. So we are talking about initial initiatives, not experimental, but still at a prototype level. While there is a larger use of biomethane, 3.3 megatep as a whole, not just in transportation, but also for feeding in the grid, the gas grid. So electrification is still further highlighted in this scenario. In greater detail, there is a focus on non-electrical renewables and the final consumptions. So we have spoken about electric power, but here we focus on non-electric power or non-electric resources. As you can see from the colors, our studies tell us that we are speaking about over 2 megatep of biomethane in the green, and also an increase in biomethane in the transport sector. This is the most significant data that I extracted to give you further context for our discussions of the day. If we look at detail, in the case of transportation, in the field of transportation, there are some evidences concerning the overall compression of consumption associated to transport, but also the fact that there are new forms or new vectors, 0.3 megatep hydrogen, and then the green fuels, 1.15 megatep of biomethane, BioGNL, which are part of the green fuel item. So this is the scenario in which we are going to move by 2030. I think that the biggest innovation or the increase in the use of biogas and biomethane is precisely related to the transport sector. And to finish, let's look at the 2050 scenario. In this slide, I don't give you any quantitative information, but the flows are quite evident. Everything is concentrated in the higher part of the slide. So power generation and the electricity sector are going to play a role which is double than today. If we are at 330 terawatt hour, by 2050, this figure will be 650 terawatt hour. Only 400 are related to the actual associated with electrical consumption. The blue flow in the middle will be produced through hydrogen, and it's going to then be used to reduce the carbon footprint of sectors that are not traditionally electric, essentially transportation, with a significant share that you see associated with this there. Last slide is this one. If we look at 2050, we have tried to look at dispatchment of electric power in 3 spring days. Again, this is just a draft scenario. Those yellow cones tell you that from PV we are going to get the power for the electric power generation sector. So what primary energies are we going to use? How do we feed the electric grid? Photovoltaic, wind. The part you see below is how we use energy from the electric power sector. We use it traditionally, so the purple part is the normal load diagram that you see today, except it's been slightly increased for electric power usage. What should make us think are the negative peaks? They are represented by storage, power to X, moving electricity or energy from electricity moving on to hydrogen and e-fuels in order to bridge the season gap, so spring and summer versus fall and winter. And then there is also the overgeneration part, a small amount of energy we will have to give up, even though we've got installed production means. If we look at this diagram that refers to 2050, the need for flexible resources as the electric usage of biogas and biomethane will also continue until 2050. So I agree with the approach shown by Marco Pezzaglia before. So it's not just a matter of transition, it's also a matter of the system in which flexibility will be required for our energy system. And I apologize if I spoke longer than I should have. Don't worry at all, Professor. Thank you. Because your analyses are always very easy to understand. And today, too, they have led us much further in the future scenarios, also with this final comment that you made that is based on science and facts. And so Luca Venturini from the Ministry for Green Transition, I think that also based on this data, the importance of biogas and biomethane is really growing versus the regional goals.
Good morning. First of all, thank you. I would like to thank the organizers. I would like to thank the Italian Biogas Consortium. I'm here on behalf of Ms. Romano, who couldn't be here. She's the head of department. But until the very last moment, she had to be here in my stead. Well, I will take the last slide as a reference. When the professor presents this number, well, he presents them as something that is, let's say, is resonating with everyone, as if the efforts was within our reach. Whereas when I look at these numbers, I feel as if I'm part of the ups and downs we've seen, because behind all that, there's the work that the ministry has been doing. The ministry, the government, operators in the first place. The problem is what I heard in the first comments we heard. 2013 might have seen a false start of this sector, and in my view, it wasn't the case. Because we needed that to start learning about new things, to start putting things together that in 2019 have brought the decree of the 2nd of March to stimulate the production of biomethane and start testing what the actual potential to put in place might be. I would like to follow along the lines what Pezzaglia said regarding the need of giving some certainties in shifting from one mechanism to another. Well, the response doesn't come from me, but it comes from the institution I unworthily represent here. We heard about a list of the measures of the National Recovery Resilience Plan. That was a message that is definitely worth more than the promises I could make today. That was a strong sign of what the vision is, what the intentions are, the intentions regarding renewables, regarding the development of renewables. And the professor that just took the floor was very clear in his presentation. 3.5 billion cubic meters by 2026 of biomethane, the 2.5 billion foreseen in the recovery measure, plus the billion that was included in the decree of the 2nd of March 2018 for transportation. Well, there's a first element we have to consider. The effort that the ministry has been making to exploit the potential for the production of biomethane and also for the reconversion of existing plants. A first attempt was made. There wasn't effective enough. There was a comfort zone to set aside where we're trying to reason in a synergic approach aimed at reaching this goal by 2026. I have the regret of not having here a technical presentation to better describe what's the mechanism we are putting in place, which will foresee a global vision of the sector, and this will concern biomethane for transportation and for other uses. Considering what we have included in the recovery measure, the 40% financing, non-returnable, and then a system of auctions on tariffs and guarantees of origin that will play a role for biomethane and for you, who are the ones that will contribute to team efforts. You know, all these people I mentioned, Giovanni Perrella, and others who are promoting these goals. Well, we're trying to develop a mechanism that I can assure you will be viewed by practically everyone. One of the first measures that will be adopted to assess the National Recovery Resilience Plan is precisely biomethane. We have a deadline to have a decree signed. Of course, we need to notify the European Commission, but let's say that by the end of September, by early October, we will have a text shared politically to submit to the European Commission. And based on the cooperation over the past few months, based on the support of RRC, on the support by CIB, that on many occasions was a source of data, and of course a viewpoint that is yours, that is essential to obtain the necessary results. Hopefully, in the next meeting we're going to have, we will be able to provide you with a text that bears witness to my reassuring message, I hope, that will also see the right rewards in tariffs for those who are making investments. Thank you. Thank you, Venturino. Pezzaglia. Well, I think the scenarios are very clear. The system is ready. Are we going to answer yes to the green possible question? I'd say yes. First of all, with respect to scenarios, we are a consortium of producers. So you might argue, well, what does it mean to talk about consumption? Well, if we looked at a slide describing what are these sectors consuming gas, we would discover that natural gas is the one gaining ground the most. So the main consumption is coming from gas. So it's not unreasonable to talk about production and consumption. Production of renewables for whom, basically? For those sectors who are the most in need. So it's a scenario where production and consumption are actually destined to some clear sectors. And I'm happy that today the ministry, despite a very tricky time, we know that there are a number of problems, has decided to make itself heard. I know that the system is ready, and the system has been ready for some time now. But the first thing we must do is to show some trust. And having people here confirms this trust. Yes, trust is the biggest and the most important source of energy. I would like to thank our guests, Professor Delfanti, Professor Venturino, and Marco de Pezzaglia.